Thank you everyone for attending our masterclass sessions this morning with Anipat Power and Denai Musandu from Goodwill Capital. We are here now with Carey Freed, the Vice President of Marketing at Canatech Global, and she is going to present a masterclass on her vision of regenerative marketing in a post-COVID world. Carey, thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time out from your very busy schedule to not only share your experiences and insights with us, but also develop a framework around what regenerative marketing really means collaboratively with us as part of the preparatory process for this conference. I know you put in a lot of effort to really customize your approach to what's necessary to support businesses in recovering from the crisis, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all about it. Thank you so much, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I know it's a lot of interesting content and incredible people, so I really appreciate the opportunity. Matabo, pleasure to be here with you. What's so compelling for me is that everybody's in it together, and it's like, we're all, in some ways, it's not the same for everybody, obviously, in terms of impact, but it's kind of leveled the playing field from a business perspective in a lot of ways. And in terms of access and in terms of opportunity, creativity, I think it's really shaken things to the core. So I want to share some ideas. There's this discussion, like in the cannabis industry, you know, at least in the United States, cannabis was considered an essential service during the whole COVID, you know, pandemic and lockdown and economic situation. So I consider now marketing in the same way an essential service. And I think we proved that coming through this experience where marketing had to still be the face of the brand and run things in very tumultuous times, right? But also be forward thinking and forward projecting and anticipating what's coming next and trying to figure out what's coming next. I always say marketing is like you're flying the plane while you're building it. And I've never worked in a company where it wasn't like that. And I don't even know what it would look like if it wasn't like that, because marketing is always on the front line and it's always forward facing. If it's like a great situation, marketing has to be out there ahead of it. And when you're doing, you know, disaster messaging or, you know, what we went through now with COVID, you're also on the front lines and you're literally making it up as you go along in this situation, like everybody from politicians to scientists are, you know. So there's a heavy lift for marketers.
I agree with you fully. I mean, there's never been a time where, you know, in my space or work line where marketing was not a big part of any project. And I guess now what the shift, that paradigm shift that has happened is around rebranding marketing, you know, that people know that it's not just about making it look good, as opposed to less focus on the aesthetics and more focus on the impact and the outcomes. And I'm excited to actually, you know, hear your thoughts around, you know, what it's really going to take to paradigm shift from a personal aspect, community, and obviously on a larger international scale. So all the way in South Africa, I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much to Roshem, obviously, and Miriam.
Great. Yeah, I agree. The paradigm shift is profound and ongoing. And it's iterative in the same way that marketing is, and that we're kind of like going through this process, everybody all together. You know, when you think about a generation, and as marketers, you always are thinking about, you know, the psychology and the generational impact and events. This is now the COVID generation. This is a true turning point in, I don't know if you say humanity, but in the way that we, just more profound than anything, most people who are of any age, whether you're 20 or 40 or 60 or 80, nobody can remember this. I mean, maybe 80 or 90-year-old people could remember something this monumental, but I mean, it literally, borders are changing in the world. Political reality is changing in the world, and that's all part of it. And for marketing to be the messaging and the storytelling, the personality of the brand, I think means you have to absorb all of this, you know, and figure out a way to reflect it. Now, I was thinking too, and doing some research, that there are a lot of companies that have no connection or no business or no interest in touching on political current affairs. And that's fine. They're lucky, they should just be like low key. But if you do have an impact, and in terms of even just having relationships with your customers and relationships with the world, which those have to be tended right now. So I would like to make a move for a pivot toward empathy. And I think that's one of the biggest calls of the moment. And I think the companies that make that move to an authentic, empathic role, not solely, but as part of their bigger mission or bigger messaging, I think those will be successful companies in this post-COVID era. And when I talk about empathy, what I'm thinking about is how do you really get inside people's heads, but in a different way than wanting to make them buy something or wanting to make them pay attention to a product, or but to get into it in a personal, appropriately personal way. And understand how has the world around us changed, because we're now it's like we're all in the same fishbowl. You know what I mean? There's no line anymore between us and them and selling to them. It's like it's us. And how can you express that, I think is a demand consumers have right now. In a lot of ways, consumers are giving more access than ever before, which is pretty compelling. And I feel like attention is the most precious commodity that a marketer can get. I mean, that anybody can get, and it's limited. And we're literally, beyond flooded with messages and content all day long. But how can you make it high touch within this, socially distanced and, personally distanced way? And how can you connect in a relevant way that's, worth people's time and attention? What do you have to say that's worth their time and attention?
The good news is that people still trust marketing. It's almost as if marketing is still used as a fact verification that if it's marketed, it must be good. A friend of mine made a joke recently and said, look, the growth hormone in milk, we could have put there and said, milk now with the growth hormone. Because it's marketed, people would think it's good. So the good news is that truly indeed marketing is still a trusted, fact check, so to speak. And the only, like I said, challenge or, process is the paradigm shift of rebranding marketing post the COVID world, and understanding that, like you said, it's no more them, it's an us thing. We have to solve global challenges that affect each and every one of us psychologically, personally, and obviously financially. So yeah.
Yeah. I think one way you do that is that the messaging has to be around like this next normal. It has to be optimistic. It has to find. I think hopeful is a good message right now. And I also love this idea, and many marketers, many business people know who Seth Godin is. He's written, I don't know how many hundreds of books already and all over the place. So one of his concepts is go narrow and deep. And I think that's the demand now too. I also think the shotgun approach is dead. I think, it's like a dinosaur. I think with the marketing, the MarTech stack that you have, and the science behind marketing, the analytics behind marketing, that you can absolutely find. And the best technique right now is to find your most ardent, passionate people, and be true and authentic there, and then like let it grow. And there are so many examples of companies like that, and so many, products like that. What I did want to mention, actually, one we had a funny story with, maybe everybody knows this product. It's called Oatly. It's like an oat milk dairy substitute. And it's not usually something you get passionate about. If you have a dairy substitute, it's hard to there's no passion there. I wouldn't want to market dairy substitutes, let's just say. Anyway, you can get excited about your rice brand, your rice milk, your coconut milk, whatever. All of a sudden, this product called Oatly is like on fire. Literally globally, people are excited about oat milk, to the point that my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter, who's like totally digital, she has no paper. When I write something down, she looks at me like I'm like a dinosaur. Was like, Mom, when the Oatly carton is done. I want to cut off the membership card on the back of the box and keep it. And I was like, what? They have a membership card on the back? We used to have that when I was growing up. That was a really long time ago. That is as analog as you get, you know. And here's my daughter thrilled about this membership in Oatly. And I thought, they're doing something right. And that is, let's hope that it's as authentic as it appears, that it's not just shtick, that they're saying they're authentic, right? But I think that's a great model for, you know, our new perspective, our new paradigm. It's optimistic, it's hopeful, it's upbeat, it's a solution. It moves people. It means something. It's, you know, low impact on the globe. It has a mission, it's committed, you know what I mean? It's like all those things. And it's almost like the brand, we've worked so hard to make the brand a trusted friend, you know, like the marketing should be trusted, like you were saying. And now we're a trusted friend, but like there's this whole dimension, new dimension that the brand has to have in order to be a real friend, you know? If you do have that access, and people are, I've seen research too recently that talks about how like now the WhatsApp messaging is like skyrocketing, branded, marketed, you know, reaching customers, mostly B2C, reaching customers via WhatsApp is like, obviously because of the pandemic, it's like, how intimate, how personal, how much more personal can it get? I mean, there was kind of like a boundary there before. A lot of these boundaries are gone now because of COVID, from like literally political like surveillance and privacy issues to marketing, where it's like there's this kind of ease and friendliness and, you know, in it together. I mean, I might maybe sugarcoating a little bit. I know it's been tougher in a lot of places, but in terms of from a marketing perspective,
it's true. I mean, if you're gonna look at what has happened in the past, 8 months in the world, you realize that, you know, it's become individualized. Everything that you are exposed to, you know, it's about you, the person. And, you know, I guess it's also a double-edged sword in that regard, because if you think about it, we really do need personalized marketing so that people understand the important message in their own comprehension. And on the same breath, you know, like you're saying with privacy, user privacy particularly, you know, it's, you know, you have to give some to get some. And, you know, you have to also outweigh, you know, the impact and the outcomes, because if people are able to, you know, receive messages that have been verified to be true through marketing strategies, you know, peer-to-peer education is still the #1 way to really get a message across. And, you know, with innovative systems being put in place, we realize that you actually don't even need a big campaign. You really just have to have your own people, like you're saying, the correct characters, the correct leaders who will be able to motivate, you know, as a domino effect. So, I mean, it's really exciting times as far as I'm concerned for marketers.
Well, I was thinking when, in response, that it's like everything is political now. Everything is political. Every purchase, every drink, everything you put in your body, everything you bring into your home, everything you watch, everywhere you go is really become politicized. And I mean, my frame of reference is the United States. I've lived in Israel with my family for the last 3 years, but I really still, you know, am deeply connected to the United States. And I think even if we take a longer look back, even let's go back, I don't know, 18 months, 36 months, a couple of years, 6, 7 years, and look at the build up to the political uprising, let's say, the protesting that's going on. It's almost like, wow, it's almost like a perfect storm. It's like the social media, how it's like just invaded every space, and the politics that were happening around the world. But again, I'm speaking from American perspective, and COVID as like the overlay. It's almost like everybody kind of had this sense that the apocalypse was coming, you know what I mean? Like we called it Carmageddon in Los Angeles, and they would like fix the freeways, you know? And it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. And
ultimate roll of the dice.
the ultimate roll of the dice, and an opportunity to, at newness, and like you would say in Hebrew, hikadshut, like a renewing of incredible opportunity also, because, and this I want to share with you a particular quote, which I don't know the perfect quote, but basically I'll find it for you. And it was Cody Sanchez, who's a friend of Canatech, and who spoke about how she's amazing, so intelligent and like forward thinking. And she talked about how economic crises were like literally the birth pangs of the most incredible innovation and new models and new ways of doing business and new understanding. And like, this is a historical cycle. You know, the first one that most of us have dealt with, unless people were alive in 1918 for that in America, in the world. And this is an opportunity to reimagine, like what are the Ubers and the Gets and the whatever the new things that we almost can't even imagine, that companies that emerge that from ideas that are born of necessity or born out of need and creativity. I think there's a premium on creativity right now. I mean, I always say that marketing is an art and a science. The science, it's like shame on you if you're not good at, because there's more marketing technology than you can even wrap your head around, and it can make you an excellent technical marketer. But the creativity, the art, the wisdom, the skill, the leadership that you need to like really, you know, be a CMO is not, or to be a marketing executive is, you know, not science like that in the same way. So I think there's a call for creativity. You know, in my experience, I work for a company that a large part of our business is the live event space. And we were the Rolls Royce, the premium live event. I always say we were like, it's a dream product to sell when people want to buy what you're selling enthusiastically, or buying what you're selling. You know what I mean? So that's a pleasure. But now that's a live event business. Like, now what? You know, now what? So we just made a really big shift to a virtual digital platform and providing content and expertise and what we normally deliver in a live event online. But we haven't cracked the code. We have not cracked the code, and there's a lot of learning, and we're figuring it out. We did something really interesting, which I think there's also an opportunity here. In addition to the creative opportunity, there's like a collaboration opportunity where, in rethinking our business and being forced to redesign our businesses, you get a chance to think about who your competitors are, who are your natural competitors, who are your unnatural competitors, who are partners, who are unnatural partners, really, and to kind of like do this exercise where you can wave a magic wand and be like, well, what if, you know, money wasn't an issue? What if the competition wasn't an issue? What if XYZ, you know, insert, and reimagine different projects and different products that you can offer the market. We have had a really amazing experience right now with Global Hemp Day in partnering with the ArcView Group. And it's been amazing learning and collaborating, and literally that experience of watching things grow because of the team that is like so invested and working with like-minded people and people who are, you know, on the same page. It's been really a pleasure and a real learning experience for me. And before COVID, I wouldn't have imagined it. As a matter of fact, on maybe the first day, it could have been my first interview, Saul Kay said to me, you know, when we grow up, we want to be like ArcView. So I always looked at them like, you know, it was a privilege. So I don't think we could have imagined that necessarily pre-COVID, or we might have imagined it, but it made us make it happen. So I think that's another element.
I'll share a quick joke with you. Somebody asked who really accelerated technology in your company, and you've got 3 options. It's a multiple question answer. First, the CEO, B, the marketing manager, or C, COVID. And true, COVID has really accelerated the use of technology, you know, more than any stuff,
I think,
you know.
Yeah, it's accelerated, yeah, adoption, you know, new technique, yeah, amazing rates, like condensed things we talked about. Wouldn't it be nice if, or one day we should, or what if we could, you know, and just like squeezed it. Like when you squeeze olives, you know, you have to squeeze them and you get these little drips of the most precious oil.
Absolutely.
I have another idea, a couple of ideas I want to share around mindfulness.
Yes.
And when I talk about mindfulness, I use a very specific definition that I'm going to read. I want to share with you. It's a definition from John Kabat-Zinn, who's an American doctor and kind of the grandfather of the mindfulness-based meditation. And it's kind of very popular around the world. It's a non-denominational, very healing, peaceful kind of practice. So his definition of mindfulness, he goes like this. Mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And the way that you do that, according to mindfulness-based, it's MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. I can't remember, I should remember that. Is through breathing exercises, meditation exercises. So that's like beyond the scope of what we're talking about now, but I do want to talk about mindful marketing.
I'm glad that you would really go out of, the expected topic. You see, Carey, there's a very strong bond between health and whatever you do. There's a strong correlation between your personal health and anything that you touch beyond that. So I'm glad that in marketing, you see the need to mention mindfulness, because it's really a self-love process. For you to become an ultimate, world-changing machine, you have to, self-master. And I'm glad that mindfulness is a great part of your talk.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it speaks to the empathy, the authenticity, this paradigm shift that, we've talked about, of having to be really real. And I think consumers and marketers, consumers especially, are expecting products, brands to stand for something, to be honest, to be knowledgeable, even to be imperfect. I think brands are more humanized than ever right now. I wonder how, it's like when you pull a rubber band, I wonder how different it'll be. I don't know, like projecting 12 months from now or 18 months from now. Will it kind of level off, or have we gone to such an extreme that we don't really know what it's going to look like? Is it going to back off? I'm sure people are already looking forward to consumer behavior, but I mean, we know that we have unprecedented access to consumers. We know that we have their attention because they're at home and on digital. We know everything is digital, and everything that people have to do in life is happening digitally. And that acceleration point too of people who are, I can't even think of all the examples, the businesses that moved online, the businesses that changed, it's tremendous. Everybody knows, these stories. So I think brands and companies have to live within the context of their communities. You have to be in the same place. You have to be able to stand in people's shoes. You have to treat people fairly, your employees and your customers. I think we've seen low tolerance for, awful employment. And we've also seen awful behavior between people, like astoundingly disrespectful behavior. So there are kind of all these forces at play in the market. It's like the market has always historically is this meeting place, is the crossroads where people come and from all over the world or from all directions. And you see that happening, Mm-hmm. And we have so limited actual physical connection with people now that those times seem like charged, really emotionally charged. I mean, I also think marketers have to understand, and this is a little bit me on my soapbox, but everybody has post-COVID stress disorder or will have post-COVID stress disorder. And if you just keep singing the same song that you've been singing before COVID, nobody can even hear that song right now, I think your brand has to be supportive. It has to be regular. It has to be, in context with your life, in order to get people's attention.
Yeah.
These values, and even though there are values for this interfaith dialogue group, I feel like they're very applicable in a marketing context, especially right now. So I wanted to share a couple of those. So one of those, the first value is curiosity over assumptions.
Gotcha.
I mean, we can talk about it, but I think it's better to just think about what it means. So one of the things that you have to do in order to empathize is to be able to get inside another person's head. What are the assumptions in my head that prevent me from getting inside your head? You know, and in that dialogue group in particular, I'm Jewish, I live in Israel, my father was a Holocaust survivor. There were, in my cohort were Muslims from all over the world, even a Palestinian woman who I was, you know, cosmically most drawn to. And we had an incredible experience, like trying to be curious over our assumptions about each other. I mean, this is something you could do with people in your office, and then you try and do it with your customer personae, you know, your audience.
Right.
Another value of New Ground is relationships before politics. So even though I think brands have to take a stand and brands have to be leaders and brands need to, you know, be in the context of their community, I also feel like there is a boundary, like there might be a line for most brands. You know, some are willing to cross it, but there might be a line for most brands. And I think, although I guess I'm even questioning it as I'm saying it right now, sometimes it's so intense that you really do have to take a stand and put politics over relationships. But I would say for the most part, personal relationships should trump politics.
I guess, you know, the shift is that we need to look at a policy over politician and look at character over celebrity. You know, if we stay constant, whether it's political or not, at least we've got a mandated agreement that this is the policy we're working on and not about the politician. You know, whoever is sitting in office does not affect the policy or, you know, the general consensus. And also with, you know, celebrity status, you know, you don't just, you know, think someone is a celebrity because of their status, but more of their character. You know, an old man who is just living a righteous life, for me, you know, qualifies to be a celebrity, because we should celebrate someone like that over the status of someone driving a fancy car, living in a big house, but not treating people well. So the relationship, I totally agree with you, you know, should indeed be personal. Yeah.
So, and I mean, I think this is fair in terms of a value. Another one of the values of New Ground is relationships before politics. And this is something I actually wrestle with because I feel that there are important issues to take a stand on, absolutely. But I think at the core, what drives people, what motivates people are fear and love, and you can do that through relationships better than in any other way. You know, touch people, and I think relationships are ultimately more important than politics. So I do think it's on brands to take a leadership position, and I think brands can be part of the solution. I think a brand can transcend differences between people. A brand can be for something bigger when it's appropriate, obviously, if your brand is appropriate to that space and to that conversation and that attention and intimacy with people. I think what's really compelling now, when I was growing up, there was a teacher in my high school, he had a bumper sticker. It said, think locally, think globally, act locally. But I think you can really read that sentence both ways now, because I think it's just, there's no difference, you know what I mean? You can think locally and act globally, or think globally and act locally, and it's almost the same thing because of the access that we have, because of social media, because of the channels that exist, you know, in the world to get messages out, which are, you know, literally infinite. Everything is, the personal is political and global is local, and vice versa. And I think a brand can take advantage of that space and that kind of exposure and be part of the zeitgeist and the culture and the context of the culture and be really relevant in people's lives, you know, in a strong, meaningful way. Okay, and then the other value of New Ground, which I think is applicable in the marketing space, is to be nimble and responsive. And I think that means to be present and to be part of the dialogue and to be a leader to be visible when it's important to be visible, and to, you know, hold back when that's also appropriate. I think nimble means being open to new technology, being agile, being able to pivot, having a team of people that understand that the imperative is pivoting and not how we used to do things. You know, you need a certain mind space. Marketers, I think the most successful marketers, I think, are people who embrace change. You know, they say like 75% of people are resistant to change, even in the case when it's like of benefit to them, because just the change is, you know, too scary or whatever. They're, you know, they're set against it. So marketers are, I think, the 25% who embrace change. I think you have to be in that kind of headspace. That's very taxing. That's really, really stressful. You know, that's fight or flight. You know, that's not everything is copacetic. So it's a challenge right now. It's a challenge right now. So nimble and responsive, I think, means that you can adjust. You don't put too much stock in anything until you know it's working, and you move when you have to, and you find new partnerships, like what I'm calling unnatural partnerships. That might be the most natural thing right now. And this is the next normal. This is it. We got to hunker down and be ready for this. I think it's imperative now on marketers, and it's an opportunity for marketing to really take a stand and to be part of the solution in the world, and to be another way of doing things, and to get people out of the either or, us or them way of thinking. And everything's so much bigger than that, you know, and we can show a vision. We can be that hopeful, optimistic, better vision, a better us kind of view. And I think some of the most successful, compelling marketing that we've seen in the last 8 months, mostly from really big brands that have the money and the resources to put their big messages out there while everybody else is like scrambling. We've seen some amazing work from big brands, you know, obviously Nike, Guinness, I've seen some recently in the last few weeks that have been really impressive, that really hit the right tone in terms of messaging. So I think we got to be creative, we got to be authentic, we have to be humble, empathic, and find that tone that's most relevant to our customers. You know, in B2B, it's a bit harder. I always have this debate with people. I think B2B is harder than B2C, because in B2B, you have to really convince a lot of people to buy what you're selling. In B2C, it's like, you want a sandwich, you want a soda, you want a pair of pants, you want Levi, you want jeans, you want a car. It's one person, really, maybe two, that has to make a decision. So we can really, we have to really get clear in our messaging and know who we're talking to. And this personalized approach is really, I think, a significant element in how we're gonna do things in the future. So there's no excuse to be caught unprepared anymore. Like, we need to be prepared for every eventuality. I don't think it's gonna be easy, but it's changing.
At least be flexible enough, you know, even if we're not given the opportunity to prepare sufficiently, at least have structures that will allow you to be flexible, to adapt, you know, like you said.
And that goes back to being nimble and responsive, to like, you have to literally be ready for whatever is going to happen. And guess what? You can't even imagine what's going to happen. I've seen a lot of brands and a lot of companies now going through their purpose, vision, mission exercise, and it's almost like it's been forced on us in a way that it's unavoidable. You've been forced to ask yourself serious questions on a personal and a business level, and so people are having this dialogue. And I think now is a really good time to take a look at those elements of your business and your marketing and how it's communicated internally and externally, and, you know, shape up. There are no excuses. Like, this stuff has to be, it's doing your homework. This is table stakes for marketing. You have to show up, and your mission, vision, and purpose has probably changed in the last whatever amount of time you want to say, 12 months, you know, 8 to 12 months. So I think, you know, people don't talk a lot about trust in business, at least on a personal level. I think it's a critical component in any company or any venture. Without trust, there's an obvious tax that's paid. And with trust, you know, there are dividends that are paid. And that's not my concept. That's a Franklin Covey concept. And it's very strong, and it's researched and documented that organizations that are built on trust thrive. Organizations that have a purpose outperform organizations that, you know, lack that cohesion or that intent, let's say. And I think there's a compelling argument it's old already. There's an old compelling argument for mission-driven, purpose-driven businesses. And maybe that'll get it is getting a big breath of fresh air right now. Again, we're so intimate, we're asking so much of the people, of our consumers and the people that we talk to, and everybody's in their post-COVID stress disorder mode. We have to be nice to each other. You know what I mean? It's got to be mindful. I have no interest in, and I think people have no tolerance for any whiff of being taken advantage of, or outwitted, or ignored, or not seen, or disrespected. I mean, there's just no tolerance. It just doesn't fly. We've evolved, you know what I mean? There's a marketing and a way of doing business that's dead and should be buried. And now we're evolved, and we have an opportunity now. Again, the next normal, I think, is pretty exciting, the opportunity there. I think trust is going to be an important factor moving forward. What was it like for you working from home? Does your company even know that? Do they have any idea? You know, how did people reach out to each other? How were you treated? How were people considerate? This was really a great equalizer, I think, moment.
You know, what are we holistically trying to change or to reset with marketing, and what is it looking like post COVID?
Well, I think the conversation has changed. I think the cadence of the conversation has changed. I think the content, the quality of the conversation has changed. I think everybody has to acknowledge what we've gone through, whether that's implicit or explicit. I think there needs to be I guess I would call it a more humble approach, a more gentle approach. If you want to call it compassionate capitalism, I don't know what you want to call it necessarily, but there's a different, it's almost like the relationship that is on like another plane, and you got to get to that plane. Otherwise you're going to, I think, lose. I mean, sure, there are a lot of businesses that can be tone deaf and still survive, but I don't want to work at any of those businesses. You know, we don't want to work there. That's not what we're trying to do. Now you have a model of how you can not destroy the earth. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you choose that model? You know, like this, I've learned so much in the last few weeks about hemp. I'm a hemp evangelist. Hemp should be like everywhere. Every country needs to grow it, produce it, manufacture it, make it for food, make it for building, make it for electroconductive, make it for cars.
Everything. I
mean, it is a crime against humanity that is not a product that's out there. It's a superfood. It's so crazy that we live in a world where it's like reason doesn't prevail. You know what I mean? I know that sounds really naive, but it's like so silly. Like, really, we have to fight this hard for certain things. Maybe the fights maybe like those, you know, like a lot of these impenetrable kind of ideas or practices are falling. Maybe this is, you know, I think it's all part of the same movement: hemp, medical cannabis, social justice. You know what I mean? There's like there are epochs, eras in the world. Maybe we're in that. I hope we're in, you know, this evolutionary, spiritual consciousness raised kind of era. Like, I want to hope we're going through all of this for, you know, an elevated, you know, outcome. A better outcome.
I completely agree with you, Carey, and I believe that this crisis is ultimately an opportunity to create a world that reflects our innermost values, that reflects where we want to be, what kind of a world we want to live in, what types of practices and policies and products we want to support, and products that represent our values. So on that note, we've talked about competitive strategy in the past, shared value as a competitive strategy as developed by Michael Porter. And a recent initiative of his is a research project with Catherine Gell on how competition in the politics industry is failing America. So my personal stance on that is the element of competitiveness being lacking in politics, having, you know, only two options. So us against them, red against blue. The labeling, I believe that is so toxic, and not having diversity in politics either, not having a wide range of choices. And I'd like to know what your take is on what it will take to communicate this future that we're building together, but also at the same time offering people a wider range of choices?
Well, I feel there's a natural, it's a really deep question. I feel there's a natural ground, a natural growing voice and thirst for the message. So I feel like we're in the right time and the right place. I don't necessarily feel like we're pushing a rock uphill to get this message out there. I feel like there's a thirst in the world for this message. What it will take, I think the personal becoming the political is the shift that people have to go through, and you have to really ask the question of where am I going to work? What am I going to put my efforts toward? What am I willing to put up with? What do I want to fight for? And that has to be a collective consciousness.
I mean, for me, that the reason I wanted to touch on it is simply because of the fact that although there's this opportunity, although there's a lot of positive growth happening and good messaging out there, there's also so much of that polarization. And I've seen it everywhere, from South Africa to here in Serbia to the US. It's this us versus them. And it's getting so much more toxic and so much more threatening.
Just bring it down a couple of levels. Let's just be honest with each other. Let's share value. Let's have fair, fierce competition. I believe in competition, but let's be fair about it. You know what I mean? Let's have fair business practices. Maybe marketing could be a force of toning things down, because we're just wanting to, I guess, supersede the binary, the either or, us or them extremism that's prevailing right now. It's like you said, it's toxic. It's it's almost burning hot. You know what I mean? It burns your ears, it burns your eyes, it hurts. We know people, I mean, that's the role. Marketing's like this psychologist, in the marketplace. We have to know how people are feeling and how they're thinking. We have to know how to talk to them. We have to be emotionally intelligent. We have to, treat them with respect.
Definitely. You sometimes have to even realize that even thank you, Miriam, for that note, because even with polarization being so toxic, there's also that persuadable, population who really need to be inducted into, adulthood, perhaps with the correct mindset. And, this, like you're saying, is a fresh start for everybody to actually, realign themselves, with what's important and how do we go about it with, collective consciousness, like you said. I love it.
I think you're touching on something as well, and I think this is really compelling. I think the younger generations, our natural partners, are already there, and they get it. And so they're a mighty force, and I hope that they vote like crazy in America in November. And in terms of the persuadables, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I don't want it you can't talk to people that are, like this. Find the people that you can talk to. There are a lot of people that might hear your message. You have to tell your message in a couple of different ways. You've got to break it down. They don't all look the same, and they're not in the same buyer journey, whatever, for your good message. You know what I mean? You have to people go through stages. You have to adapt your message for their different stages, but talk to the people who will listen, who can hear you.
And I want to also build on this by saying that while we are talking about a lot of new developments and paradigm shifts and new initiatives that we want to bring into the world, I think there's a lot of value in going back to basics and learning from the giants of the past. And in my opinion, the father of strategy, Michael Porter, really drove that point home when he presented on what strategy is, and that it's not about competing to be the best. It's not about having the best product or the best car. It's about competing to be unique. And what is different about that product? What type of a solution is it creating that's not out there yet? What is your unique target audience? How do you connect with those people who empathize with your brand values and with the value of your product, and who need that value, where your uniqueness matches their uniqueness? And to me, I see that as the way forward. So can you tell me a bit about how to make a brand authentic and unique? How do we do that together as a team? How do we drive our team together to make that happen and really showcase our uniqueness?
Well, I think, what Michael Porter is using, but Michael Porter's language in my like marketing brain is just we used to call it old school USP, your unique selling proposition. What is it? Even if you sell the same thing as 10 other companies, you've got to find that unique selling proposition that is compelling so that you can match, it's like plus and minus. You have to go out and match the people whose values match and who need what you're selling and who will choose you because of your values or because of that unique selling proposition. So I go back to narrow and deep. I think you have to know as much as possible about your super users, about your biggest fans, about your evangelists. I think you can use tactics, social tactics, digital tactics, use influencers, find like-minded people, like shadow audiences. Use this time now of unlimited access to find the people that you align with in the world. And align your efforts. I think there's a really compelling argument to be made for collaboration. I think my example and my experience right now with the ArcView group was really an eye-opening experience. I never considered collaborating with them before, and we built something amazing. I mean, Global Hemp Day is literally incredible. The learning, people are going to learn more in 2 days than you can learn in a year, and it's like, and you got to learn that fast now. Everything's so accelerated. Like, there's so much information. You got to get it when you need it, and you got to get the right information and trustworthy information. I think that's how marketing can build new brands. I think there's a new way of doing business. Like, there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new way to to tell your brand story. You got to get your brand story really clear. You got to get your unique selling proposition really clear, and then you go tell your story. Find the people who want to hear your story, and even the people who don't think they want to hear your story, but you might have something in common with them. What do you have in common with them that can make them consider you worthy of their attention and start a dialogue?